Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org. Hi, this is Bill Kenower for Author Magazine, and today I'm at the University Bookstore in Seattle, Washington with Ryan Britt, author of Luke Skywalker Can't Read and Other Geeky Truths. Ryan, welcome to Author.
Thank you, Bill.
So, Ryan, I often tell my students that the best thing they can do is find something they love and write about it, whatever it is. And it seems as though, based on reading your book, you made that discovery at a very early age and basically have not looked back. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Wouldn't it be terrible if it wasn't accurate, though?
Why are you spending all this time?
If I was just like, I actually hate Star Wars, I actually hate Doctor Who, I just do this because the kids love it. That would be so strange. No, you're absolutely right. That is 100% correct. I feel like I was doing it without knowing it when I was very young, when I was trying to come up with theories of why things didn't work in an episode of Star Trek, or trying to explain why things worked on Buck Rogers or something like that didn't make sense to me. So I think that I was doing it sort of on accident as a very young child.
But everyone who loves this stuff does this to some degree, argues about it, debates about it, points out tiny problems with it or big problems, but you have made a career of it. To some degree.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think that the difference is that sometimes those conversations you're talking about aren't always fun for people that don't have all the information, right?
I don't think almost never.
Almost never. And I definitely know that there is aspects of my book that for someone who is a total layperson will be like, hey, you lost me.
Right.
But I hope what I tried to do that's different than some of those late night conversations or early morning conversations or conversations online is I tried to make it a little bit more accessible to maybe the person that felt intimidated by those conversations in real life, or somebody who didn't know, that there was all this kind of cool stuff embedded in Sherlock Holmes, or somebody who didn't know that there was Dickens, in The Wrath of Khan, that they could find something out that sometimes those conversations in real life will exclude someone else. They'll feel like, well, I can't even enter this because I don't even know the first thing about Joseph Campbell and Star Wars. So I feel like I can't talk about this. I wanted the book to be fun for somebody, who didn't necessarily have all of that.
Well, I thought you did a good job because even though I know this stuff to some degree, I certainly haven't immersed myself in it, and I was able to read along very happily. And so it seems to me you achieved that goal, and aside from selling more books, which one might theoretically be able to do by reaching a broader audience, what is the greater emotional value in being able to reach out beyond what is a pretty big group of core readers who get this stuff and don't need to be helped along?
Well, that's a really good question. It's a complicated question because a lot of what a writer does is both something that, there's some kind of Salinger quote that I always mangle, in which he's saying that you should write something that you yourself would want to read.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And when you only write for the internet, you don't always get to be your authentic voice completely. Right, like you don't always get to 100% be yourself online.
Why is that?
Well,
because I write online all the time, so I'm curious what...
I think that sometimes, in terms of incorporating autobiography into criticism, right,
okay.
like so.
You don't have the room for it.
You don't have the room for it. You don't have the space. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's nothing. It's not a cynical thing, and I understand why I'm not allowed to do like extensive aspects of my autobiography in pieces of criticism I write online. But in this, I was able to do something different because it's a book and people are more patient with a book. So the one impetus is that the writer wants to do something that they're not able to do otherwise, right? The second thing is that I just felt like there's some good similar books to mine. Sam Maggs had one called Geek Girl's Guide to the Galaxy, which I think is really good. But I didn't see one that was just like both a lot of analytical stuff that I'm interested in, combined with humor. And that was something that I was interested in infusing, mostly because it's the kind of stuff I like reading.
One obvious question, and I find it interesting why people do what they do, and why they make the choice that is right for them. And so you love science fiction, And you liked fantasy too, I assume? I was a huge fantasy reader when I was a young man, so I understood there was a big crossover in that.
Yeah.
It's oddly, even though they are separate in certain ways.
Yeah.
But these are fictional worlds. Why the root of criticism and not fiction?
Well, I still...
Other than one is easier than for you, but why one, not the other?
Well, it is really to having to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what am I good at? And
I assumed you tried your hand.
Well, I write fiction.
You wrote a play, I know.
I've written a few plays. I've written fiction. I've published some fiction.
Okay.
I'm working on a novel in addition to another collection of criticism.
Okay.
But I think that the short answer with that would be, it became something that I could see how to get it done and how to keep it moving. Whereas and how it would not be like something else that someone else was doing.
Okay.
It was important for me to do something that I thought had a field, but that I could sort of do something new with it. And
you could see what that new thing was, because it's one thing to think. You must have had some concept of a space that wasn't occupied.
I mean, it's a good question. I haven't gotten any of these questions yet, so this is actually like I'm not ready for some of these.
Good.
But I guess I feel like I remember picturing like a 200, 250 page book that would be like Rob Sheffield, Sarah Vowell, or Chuck Klosterman for sci-fi fantasy fans. And I remember picturing it. And I suddenly was like, I can do that. I can do that. And whereas when I would picture my novels, sometimes I'm like, that kind of sounds like somebody else's novel. That doesn't sound like my book.
Right.
You know, and so that's a weird, like it's that visualization.
It is not
thing,
weird.
You know?
That's how it works. And, and one of the things you do as a creator, because you're here, the book is way in the future, you have to trust that part of you that can picture it in an almost mystical kind of way. You have to trust that part.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, and I teach creative writing in New York City, and oftentimes I tell my students that, like, it's okay to do something that maybe wasn't what you thought you were going to do.
Yeah.
But something that it's always what you can do.
Yeah.
And I know I already said that, but I feel like that was a huge lesson for me. And the other thing is that I had done versions and ideas. Some of these ideas had existed online when I wrote for Tor.com and some other places, and I thought, well, I can do more. These aren't done really. In fact, these could be completely rewritten.
Yeah.
You know, and that was really it was important for me to realize that just because it was published online once, that it wasn't over.
No.
That I could actually go back and say, oh, well, maybe I could like triple my research and make it 4 times as long, and maybe that would be a new.
Absolutely.
A new
what you do in 1,000 words or 600 words, which is what I often the length and then I turn it into a chapter in a book. It's the same ideas, but there's such depth you can get by doing it in 5,000 words instead.
Absolutely, but it's nice to have had the push to do the 600 word version in the first place.
Because you get your ideas down,
like,
kind of.
Yeah. And I think that there was something that, and this is a paraphrase, but there was something from Ursula K. Le Guin where she was talking about how writing for publication is really helpful for younger writers or budding writers of any age and genre, because it puts something in a context. You know, and I find that, like, if I'm like, okay, it's going to be an essay and it's going to be 1,000 words for this venue, then I know what to do.
It's got parameters right away.
And even with this, I'm like, it's going to be an essay in a book, and this one's going to be about 8,000 words. This one's going to be about 5,000 words, and then I know what to do with it. That's really important for me. Other writers don't work that way in other genres, and you know, I have these novelist friends, and they'll be like, oh, this novel is totally out of control. It's like 600,000 words. I'm like, I don't even know how you even get there, because I would feel so lost in that that I would be scrambling to even reach. I wouldn't even want it to be that unwieldy. Yeah. You know, so I've always liked the idea of it being really focused, and maybe it's because I also have this perverse interest in, you know, the nonfiction work of science fiction writers. Like Isaac Asimov has all these amazing essays, and Le Guin has amazing essays, and Harlan Ellison has amazing essays. And I'm always like perversely interested in how brief those are in comparison sometimes with their fiction. Yeah. And how sometimes they get across more, you know, in a way.
Okay, Ryan, I have one more question for you. And what I'd like you to do is finish this sentence for me.
Okay.
If writing has taught me anything, it's taught me what?
To completely trust what is actually happening rather than what you think should be going on in your life. Whatever is actually happening is what you should focus on.